many Russians? I think 20 million. How many Americans? I don't want to even tell you how many Germans. I think 50 million people is the estimate of how many died in World War II. How about World War I? The Chafetz Chaim said very, very clearly, after World War I finished, you see this war? This will be child's play compared to another world that will come a few years from now. He meant World War II. And you know this World War II that will be? That will be child's play compared to a third war that will occur later on. And that third world war, or major war, will be at Halta de Geulah. That will be the beginning of the redemption when that occurs. Even though that is not clear to us how it will begin, the Zohar and the Midrashim say that there will be several wars. Some wars will be between Yishmael and Edom, between the Muslims and the Christians. That sounds familiar. We've had the Crusades several times. These guys have been fighting each other for a long time. And they will have major battles at the end. Muslims against Christians. And this is already happening right now through terrorism or with America going to Iraq. I heard something recently in the name of the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish Zecher Tzadik Levracha said, America, because America is Malchut HaChesed, they've been so kind in helping so many countries with free food, even though I'm sure they had some interest in doing that. But nevertheless, they've been kind and charitable. He says because of that, there will never be a war on America's territory. All the wars that they will fight, and they will fight, will be outside their country. That does not mean to say that nothing will happen here. Unfortunately, some things are going to happen in this country too. Because what is about to happen will happen all over the world except for Eretz Israel. As the Navi says, Ubehar Tzion tiyeh pleita, in the mountain of Zion there will be refuge. That will be the safest place on earth. You may ask me, does that mean you're leaving soon? The answer is yes. I don't have my ticket yet, but soon. That will be the safest place. I still need to be here because I need to speak to you. But soon, yes, that will be the safest place on earth. Everywhere else in the world, there will be trouble. All kinds of trouble. And what will happen in the midst of all this trouble, in all these wars and battles between Yishmael and Edom, between Muslims and Christians? There will be one Muslim nation that will stir up major trouble and chaos all over the world. Iran. Now, 30 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, I mentioned this to someone. You know what? Those Iranians are going to be big troublemakers in the future. So he says, what are you talking about? You know that Israel has a good relationship with the Shah. There are 2 flights a week from Tel Aviv to Tehran. And for those of you who lived in Iran back then, you know that there was a very good relationship. And I said, well, that may be so, but something is going to have to happen. And remember, this is a little over 30 years ago. I'm young. I'm not going to tell you how old I was, but I was young. And I was telling them, and how did I know this? Because the Midrash says so very clearly, that right before Mashiach comes, there will be a Persian king, apparently a tyrant, who will cause a lot of havoc in the world. It will begin by him invading an Arab nation, after which the Arab nation will consult with Edom, with Europe, after which there will be major wars. What kind of war will there be? The Kabbalists that I've just met and heard from are saying there will be some nuclear war. There will be some nuclear exchange. Some at least. And that will frighten who? Forget the world. Forget South Korea being afraid of North Korea. It will frighten us in Israel. And what will that fright do to us? It will make us realize we can't rely on our Air Force. We can't rely on our army. We can't rely on our prime minister. We left that a long time ago. Right? We can only rely on our Father in heaven. That will be the last moment before the gates are closed for Teshuvah, that people will awaken, hopefully, and realize that we can only rely on Him. This is very scary stuff, because if it's not nuclear, it could easily be biological. And you know why I personally think that biological warfare is a big possibility more than nuclear? Because it's easier. It's not easy to put together a nuclear bomb, even though the instructions are on the internet. But the infrastructure that is needed for it is not easy. Biological warfare is very easy. Just throw a bunch of germs, some deadly germs, that you can carry in your pocket, and you've killed a few thousand people just like that. And that they can easily do. Chaz v'shalom. But if that is what needs to happen, that is what will happen. To get people scared, and this part of getting people scared is only to awaken them. That is the purpose of frightening people. But besides scaring people, besides bringing them to do teshuvah, the reason why these wars will occur, Ki lakadosh baruch hu yesh cheshbon aroch, He has a long account with all the goyim. All the blood that they spilled, you think He forgot? We forget. We forget. The only reason we remember the Holocaust is because there are videos, films, and pictures. Otherwise, we'd have forgotten that too. Does anybody here know or remember about Tach V'Tat, the pogroms of Khmelnytsky in the Ukraine and Poland? 300 Jewish communities were wiped out. Wiped out. Destroyed. 300,000 Jews lost their life. What about the Inquisition in Spain, later in Portugal? What about all the millions of Jews who lost their life in the First Temple, Second Temple era throughout our history? You mean there's no accounting, there's no tzedek, there's no justice? Whatever happened to those who caused the trouble, all that brought so much misery over the Jewish people? Yesh cheshbon. There will be nekama, there will be revenge. El nekamot Hashem. He's a God that takes revenge. You mean he's a revengeful God? No, He's not a revengeful God, because all these midot, all these characteristics that we ascribe to Him, He does not really have. It's just for us to understand how He conducts Himself in this world, that we use these terms. When Hashem takes nekama, it's to even things out. Sheyet tzedek. Atzur tamim pa'olo, we say in Hazinu. He's a God who's just, who's complete. We don't see it today. We see a lot of unfairness. We see evil rule. Not when Mashiach comes. Not before, right before Mashiach comes, when it will become obvious that He's in charge. There will be tzedek, there will be nekama. And all those goyim who brought about so much pain and suffering on the Jewish people will be punished. Every square inch of Europe is drenched with Jewish blood. So I'm not envious of anybody living in Europe at this time. That is not a good place to be. Just about everywhere in Europe where Jews lived, they were either tortured, killed, or expelled. You may be wondering why Hashem wants to destroy His world, why so much destruction, so much nuclear bombs, and so forth. The Maharal MiPrague says that before something new is built, you have to demolish that which was old, especially that which was impure. The Zohar says when the Jewish people entered Eretz Israel and took over the homes of the Knaanim, who were pagan, all of a sudden they saw tzara'at, they saw leprosy on the walls. One of the benefits of that leprosy was intended for them to destroy the wall, destroy the house that was built through impurity, and rebuild the home b'kedusha. The world, a great part of it, will be destroyed because of the impurity. Before a new world is built, the old has to be destroyed. And that destruction will come about in various ways. One, through the floods. The floods, as I mentioned earlier, is a force of purity, of cleansing that will need to happen in this world before Mashiach comes. I want to share with you an incredible dream or vision that a woman had recently. But I want to tell you a little bit about this woman. This woman's name is Saada. She has done teshuvah, become a very righteous and observant woman. She saw the Twin Towers collapsing before they happened. She's had incredible visions that has obviously convinced her to become more observant and return to Hashem. And recently, she had another vision about what is going to happen soon. And the reason why I'm including her dream and vision in this lecture is because the prophet Yoel says that right before Mashiach comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will allow many to have prophetic visions about what is about to happen. Many children, especially, will become aware of certain things. And it is possible that some souls are very special and pure will have the privilege of seeing these visions. Obviously, this film, this short film, probably borrows from some other movie some of the captions and some of the scenes. Nevertheless, it very much illustrates what is going to happen. In that vision, in this little film, you will see what I said earlier. There will be some incredible events that will occur in this world, natural phenomena that has not been seen before in recent human history. And one of those is meteorites coming crashing down to this world and causing tremendous havoc and destruction. So take a look at what she saw, and I will briefly translate what she says because it's in Hebrew.
אחד אני עולה לישון, כמו בכל הפעמים, ואני חולמת שאני שומעת פיצוצים, אבל פיצוצים חזקים שהאוזן לא יכלה לשמוע אותם. בעצם בחלום התעוררתי מהפיצוצים, מהרעש של הפיצוצים. פשוט קמתי והתחלתי לרוץ לכיוון החלום, לראות בעצם איפה בין הפיצוצים האלה, ואני מסתכלת מהחלום, ואני רואה לתדהמתי בתוך החלום אש יורדת משמיים, הבזקים של אש יוצאת מהשמיים. אם אני יכולה לתאר את זה כמו קרן לייזר, קרנות לייזר שיוצאים מכל הכיוונים ונוגעות בבתים ונוגעות באדמה, והכל פשוט מתפורר, ואש מכל הכיוונים, קרנות של אש. אני פשוט רואה אנשים רצים לכל הכיוונים. ואני מבחינה שאותה קרן פוגעת באנשים, וכל האור מתקלף להם והם נופלים. ואפשר להגיד, אם אני יכולה להגיד את זה בזמן, 2 דקות, נפלות אין ספור על הרצפה. אפשר היה לראות את האדמה, היו בניינים נפולים. היה מין מצב כזה של עשן שיוצא מהאדמה. היה בלגן שאי אפשר להבין אותו בהיגיון, וכל הבלגן הזה קרה בכזו מהירות, שאני כל החלום הייתי מבולבלת ולא הבנתי מה קורה בכלל. וראיתי גם בין לבין אנשים בודדים, שנעמדו, מחובקים, ולא זזים מהמקום ולא מסתכלים. אלא שהפנים שלהם לרצפה, והם מחובקים אחד עם השני, והם לא מסתכלים מה שקורה. והם עומדים והקרנות לא נוגעים בהם. אז תוך כדי כל הבלגן, וכל הרעש של הפיצוצים, וכל חורבן, פתאום שקט, פתאום הכל הפסיק. אז אני ככה מסתכלת, ופתאום אני קולטת משהו יורד מהשמיים, אבנים ענקיות, שקופות כמו קרח, בגודל בניינים. ופתאום אני רואה משהו שבהתחלה לא הבנתי מה זה, וזה בהתחלה נראה לי כמו נוצות. בהתחלה נראה לי כמו נוצות שכאילו מתעופפות בשמיים ויורדים לכיוון למטה. ואז תוך כדי זה שהם התחילו להתקרב יותר לכיוון האדמה, אני רואה ממש כמו בני אדם, לבנים אנשים, נוחתים מהשמיים, והם נחתו על האבנים השקופות. ממש הם היו עפים, והם פשוט באו אלינו כדי להציל אותנו ולהסביר לנו מה קרה.
Okay, for those of you who didn't understand, but you more or less got an idea from the picture, is that in her vision, she obviously heard and saw all this explosion coming down to the world, people running for their life. Very, very, very scary dream. But in the end, she sees this transparent cubes coming down, and what appear to be angels or humans coming down on these cubes and telling those who still survived, the few who still survived, that the world has been destroyed and you have remained, and we have come to show you what to do. This is approximately the vision that she has, which is, by the way, quite compatible with the sources that we have that describe the events leading up to Mashiach, especially Milchemet Gog uMagog, which is the last final war where there will be Avnei El Gavish, as the prophet says, raining down on the enemy. Avnei El Gavish are meteorites. For those who follow the news, you may have heard that some scientists are really scared of that possibility that an asteroid or a comet, meteorites, could come crashing down, could come close to the earth. And if they do, if they're large enough, they can be very destructive. But anyway, this is something which has not happened yet, and we hope does not happen. But because this is part of the process, we have to be aware that it may happen. I mentioned to you Milchemet Gog uMagog. The war of Gog uMagog is the last war. It's a final war. It's after the battles and the problems with the Persian king. And that is a war against the Jews alone. That is a war where all the nations will gang up on us. And why will they gang up on us? They will gang up to take away Yerushalayim from us. They will want to settle matters on their own, against our will. And according to our tradition, this will happen after Mashiach ben Yosef has already arrived. There is a Mashiach ben David who rebuilds the temple, who is the king, but there is a leader called Mashiach ben Yosef who will fight Edom. And in the process of him ruling Eretz Israel, they will all come against us. And why do they come against us? So the rabbis explain that this will be a way for Hashem to take revenge from them. He will show us and show them these are the same people, the same nations who've caused you trouble in the past, who are not coming back in a reincarnation. The same leaders of the past, Titus, Nebuchadnezzar, all the names that you remember from our history, those same people will be leaders and presidents of nations who somehow under the leadership of the United Nations or perhaps the United States, the superpower, will come against Yerushalayim. So we don't have any friends. No, we don't have any friends. And as President de Gaulle said once, nations don't have friends, they have interests. So even though right now America appears to be on our side, it doesn't appear that they will be for too long. Before this happens, however, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will allow those who have not made up their mind yet to make up their mind on which camp they are, as I said earlier. And this is a very important part of the Talich HaGeulah, the redemption process, because we are told that this process will be almost identical to the process in Egypt. What happened in Egypt? When we left Egypt, rabbis tell us 4/5 stayed behind and died by Makat HaChoshech, in the plague of darkness. And only 1/5 left, V'chamushim alu. Only 1/5 left, 20%. So what that means is that not everyone will survive. And as I said earlier, of the entire world's population, 2/3 will disappear. And when we say that, we mean everyone, even amongst us, Chas v'Shalom. So if only 1/5 will survive, who will they be? It will be only those who did teshuvah. And in order to do teshuvah, to do proper teshuvah, one really has to cry. One really has to pray. One really has to strengthen his emunah. Chafetz Chaim says that in the generation before Mashiach comes, emunah, just believing God, is going to be so difficult that he recommends people to review 13 Ikarei HaEmunah, 13 principles of emunah, just to be strong in emunah. And as well as working on one's weakness of Lashon Hara and the like. This is a way of doing teshuvah. Everybody knows his weaknesses. Everybody knows what he needs to work on specifically. But these areas that I mentioned, to be connected to Hashem properly, one really has to pray to him. One really has to cry to him. That shows sincerity. A lot of people rush through their prayers as though this is something routine and uninteresting. They have therefore no communication with Hashem. They're not connected with him. When it comes, however, to a TV show, to the Super Bowl, you can bet that they don't want to miss anything. And if they're not going to be around, they'll have it videoed and recorded. Sometimes even on Shabbat. So they don't miss anything, Chas v'Shalom, of the Super Bowl. They have to see everything. And those who actually see it are enjoying themselves with a beer or with popcorn. This is what brings excitement. This is what is meaningful to them. And that tells you a lot about the person. If that's what he chooses, if that is what he values, that is how he spends his time and money, then obviously he's very, very distant from Hashem. Another very, very important mitzvah that unfortunately is looked down at, not valued, is tzitzit. And the rabbis tell us, you want to be protected when Gog and Magog comes, do the following. Do the following and you will be saved. Tasok b'Torah u'gmilut chasadim. Study Torah and do acts of kindness. Why? Because Torah and acts of kindness build this world. People are involved and immersed in so many destructive things, things that pull them away from that which is spiritual. It's destructive. Learn Torah, which will give you direction. Do acts of kindness, and you will be saved. I'm adding on my own, based on what I've seen, that tzitzit, because it's a mitzvah that people look down at. Those who pick it up, those who show they care about it, put it on them all the time, will be offered also tremendous protection. And to prove it to you, I want you to see the following short film about an individual who was involved in a tremendous car accident. His entire body was shattered. Every part of his body was affected. Major operations to reconstruct him. The only part that was intact without even a burn was his chest, because he had a tzitzit on that he just decided to put it on a couple hours before he went into the car. An incredible story of an individual who died for 17 minutes, I think, went up to Shamayim. He had what's called a near-death experience, saw himself in front of judges who basically took apart his entire life of what he did right and what he did wrong, and was allowed to come back, became a tremendous Baal Teshuvah. But what I'd like you to see is what the tzitzit did for him.
כמו ברגים רגילים בבית.
These are the nails that they use to reconstruct his body, the screws.
הגדולים זה הרגליים, הקטנים זה הידיים. זאת הפלטינה של מחליפת העצם, אתם רואים, הנה התורמת שלה פנימה. מחליפת העצם העליונה, גם זה מחובר כבר מעצמות הרגל, ברוך השם. תהליך פשוטה, ציצית פשוטה, מצילה חיים של אדם. כל הגוף שלי התרסק, כף רגל, שני ברכיים, אגן ירכיים, שני ידיים, פרצוף, אבל כל הגוף שלי שלם בלי כבילה. שבועיים לפני, מצוות ציצית. כל צעד ושעל שלה בבית דין של מעלה, מצווה דאורייתא. ויאמר השם, משה יברך דבר את בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי ידיהם. מישהו אמר לי, תשמע, יש לך סגולה בשבילי? לא אין סגולה, תפתח את התפילה, תפתח את הספר התורה, תסתכל על הדבר שאנחנו חייבים. קמי הכי גדול.
Obviously, this is intended for the men, an incredible protection, even at night, from bad dreams and the like. It only costs $7 if you get the cotton ones. If you get the wool ones, it's a little more expensive. Tremendous protection. People just say, it's too hot. I don't want to put it on. They don't realize that it's just as important, if not more important, than the mezuzah that they have protecting them in their homes. Tzitzit is so special because when one puts it on and makes the beracha, umekabel al atzmo ol malchut shamayim. He's accepting upon himself the yoke of heaven in the same way as when he says the Kriyat Shema, the Shema Yisrael, in declaring that Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. I therefore encourage those of you who don't have one yet, get yourself one quickly. Tremendous source of protection. I mentioned earlier that one of the battles will be against Yerushalayim. And I mentioned the fact that many Jews will not support Yerushalayim. They will actually join the enemy, the Zohar says. They will join Gog and Magog, our own brothers, and fight with them against us. Yerushalayim is central to Jews. It's always been important to us. And somehow, this will be a way for us to tell who is our brother and who is not. And the reason for that perhaps is found in Tehillim, where David HaMelech says, Shalu Shlom Yerushalayim. Ask for the peace. Show your love for Yerushalayim. In other words, if you want to connect to the Jews, this is the spot where you can connect. Yerushalayim will remind you of the Bet HaMikdash. And in case you've forgotten, I will allow these Arabs to build a mosque on the Har HaBayit. Isn't that strange? Har HaBayit, where the temple stood, could have been desolate ever since the destruction of the temple. Why does God allow the Arabs to build a mosque in a city, in a spot, which is not even mentioned in the Quran? Well, I have various explanations for it. One of them, I'm actually thankful to the Arabs for putting it there, because otherwise we would have the Israeli secular archaeologists digging up the spot. And according to our tradition, the ark and the tablets are underneath. Hashem says, I'm not going to allow these guys to get close to there. And if they ever try to get close, the Arabs are going to make a big scandal. That's one explanation. However, the other explanation is an Arab mosque. An Arab mosque. And by the way, why are the Arabs giving us so much trouble lately? We want to go back home. They have enough countries of their own. There's a connection between the two. Arabs giving us a problem, especially before Mashiach comes, an Arab mosque in the holiest of holiest. It will be a sore thumb, like a sore thumb in our eyes, a thorn, to remind us, hey, look how spiritual they are. Look how holy they are. They really believe in what they believe. They bow down 5 times. They pray to Hashem. Do you know what kitrug, what accusation, chas v'shalom, that may be for those of us who are not as observant, who are not praying as much? Even though we know the Arabs took everything that they have from us, from Judaism, from the Torah, nevertheless, that building there, their war against us is only intended to remind us that the war between Jews and Muslims is a spiritual war. The secular Arabs don't really have anything against us. They'd rather live in peace. They'd rather have a Jewish government. But there's something that the religious fanatics, the Muslims, have against us. They're being used as a whip against us. That mosque in the Har HaBayit is intended to remind us, you're not doing what's right. You're not busying yourself in thinking about building the Bet HaMikdash. Look at them, they're ahead of you, Chas v'Shalom. And they will not allow us to have peace of mind in Israel if we don't do what is right. If we want to be like the rest of the nations in the world, like the Europeans, they won't tolerate that. That's defiling the Holy Land. They have to remind us that we are defiling our own land. We are defiling the land by allowing women to dress immodestly. Their problem is with Zionism, not with Judaism. Their problem is with the Israeli conduct, the secular conduct of today, of being so arrogant, of we have the best Air Force and the best army. Well, they did not always succeed in every battle. And the few battles that they did is only because of miracles of Hashem. Do you know what Saddam Hussein said, if you forgot about him already? He's long gone, right? Well, he said he was going to burn up half of Eretz Israel, all of Gush Dan, by throwing the Scud missiles. And he knew what he was talking about. What was going to happen, if he was going to get his way, is when the Scud missile would land at where the gas is distributed in Israel, it would have really caught on fire and tremendous damage would have occurred. But somehow, in a miraculous way, they had to shut it down because there was a leak before the Scud hit. They shut it down, there was a leak. And because they shut it down, nothing happened. The one who got on the radio said he's not religious. But the fact that you're thanking Hashem, the Almighty, for all the miracles, I congratulate you because you're doing the right thing. There was a miracle here. Had it not been for the miracles of Hashem, for Him looking over us, will we be able to survive in the sea of Arabs? No way. It's all a miracle. But unfortunately, the regime today in Israel is not observant. And therefore, their ideas are, it's our might. Well, if it's your might, if that's the thing, the way you think, we're going to prove you wrong. And that is why, look what's happening today. We have a bunch of clowns as our leaders who cannot conduct a normal war, a small war against a bunch of terrorists. How many Hezbollah did we have in Lebanon already that fought against the mighty Israeli army? Just like to end with another point. I spoke a little bit about teshuvah. In order to do proper teshuvah, one needs to learn. If one does not learn, one does not know what he's doing wrong. So part of teshuvah is learning. Once you learn, it requires cheshbon nefesh. One needs to contemplate his situation, his life, what he's doing wrong. One needs to ponder his tachlit, his purpose in life. Teshuvah is not something that you just do just like that. You really have to be sincere. You really have to think about what you're doing. And of course, if you're sincere, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help you. Kol haba litaher misayin oto min hashamayim. Those who come to seek divine assistance, Hashem will give it to them. No problem whatsoever. But they have to be sincere. How close are we to the very end? Anybody want to guess? How close are we to the very, very end? I don't think many of you are aware. Many of you perhaps have not heard of the Baba Sali. Baba Sali came in a dream to his son, Rabbi Baruch Abu Chatzira, and says, you know what? Do me a favor. take the gold watch that I left and give it to Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu. This happened not too long ago. This watch tells one when Mashiach is coming. How does this watch tell us when Mashiach is coming? When the hands, both hands are at 12 o'clock. When he gave him the golden watch, it was 3:15 in the afternoon. Later on, he sent him a silver watch. What's silver? Gold is din, judgment, and silver is rachamim, compassion, mercy. And when he got the watch of mercy, it showed 11:45. Ladies and gentlemen, right now it's showing 1 minute before 12. And in case you don't believe me, I want you to see the little video. It's on Israeli TV recently. They wanted to be sure that this is a fact and they're not making up a story.
היכונו למשיח בכתבתו של אורי רווח.
בחדר הקטן הזה, בביתו של המקובל הרב מרדכי אליהו, נמצא השעון המדובר. לפני יותר משנתיים התגלה בחלומו של הבבא ברוך, אביו, הבבא סאלי, וביקש ממנו למסור את השעון הזה לרב מרדכי אליהו. בחלום הוא מגלה לבנו שכאשר יגיעו המחוגים לשעה 12, יבוא המשיח.
אני נזהר לא לגוע בשעון. לא פותח את השעון, אני פוחד לפתח את השעון, אבל הוא מונח אצלי.
בתחילה מסר הבן לרב אליהו את שעון הזהב, אבל כעבור כמה חודשים שוב נגלה אביו בחלום וביקש למסור את שעון הכסף. השעה הייתה אז 3, אומרים המקורבים. עכשיו עומדים המחוגים על 11:45.
כיוון שהגיע השעון לשעה כזו וכזו, זה סימן שהגאולה מתחילה. אז השעון הזהב הוא נמצא למטה, שעון הכסף נמצא על השעון הזהב, כי כסף זה רחמים, וזהב זה דין. אני רציתי שהרחמים יהיו על הזה, והקדוש ברוך הוא יעזור שהגאולה תהיה מהר.
הרב מרדכי אליהו נהג להזכיר בדרישותיו את סיפור השעונים, אבל היום בפעם הראשונה זכינו לצלם אותם.
אבל צריכים להאמין שהמשיח יבוא, במעשים הטובים שלנו יבוא יותר מהר.
For those of you who didn't understand, he's talking about that the watches show that Mashiach is coming very, very soon, and that we obviously need to pray that it should happen soon, berachamim, that it should be with pity, with compassion, and not with tremendous judgments and wars. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting very close to Purim, and you know the story of Purim is difficult to understand, and only later on, when things unfold, we realize what was planned. The whole plan of Haman going against the Jews was a design from Hashem to awaken them to do teshuvah. That was the whole intent. Hashem intended to save them, to protect them, and to foil the plans of our enemies. But he wanted them to do teshuvah and to bring about their salvation on their own. In the same way, before Mashiach comes, there will be a plan. The script has already been written. It is up to us to read it and to see what is going to happen next. The Zohar, in talking about the end of days, tells us that the reason why the Jews have suffered so much is because of the tears of Esav. He shed tears because he was robbed of his Bechorah. Yaakov took his Bechorah from him, the rights to the firstborn. And he did it not in a very direct or honest way, through a trick. So Yitzhak tells Esav, don't worry. Yaakov can only keep the Bechorah and the blessings of the Bechorah if he follows the Torah mitzvot. Otherwise, you will rule over him, and not the other way around. The Zohar says, we've been paying a lot for the tears that Esav shed with tears of our own, tears of suffering in the hands of Esav. It is up to us to wipe those tears away, the tears of Esav. How? By bringing tears of teshuvah. That is how we will be able to strengthen and overcome and defeat Esav. Bezat Hashem, very soon, all those tears that were shed, the prophet says, Umacha Hashem dim'ah mal kol panim, as we tell all mourners when we comfort them, very soon HaKadosh Baruch Hu will wipe our tears. He will wipe our tears of pain with the tears of joy. And all of us, Bezat Hashem, will soon merit to see the fulfillment of the words of the prophet, Uva'u Tzion berina. We will come celebrating to Tzion, Ki ayin be'ayin yir'u. With our own eyes we will see Beshuv Hashem Tzion. Thank you.